What's up, guys? It is Farzin Vasugian here for another edition of the Pregame Live Chat Preseason Finale Edition. I am sure everyone is just thrilled and going crazy over this one. I mean, listen, it is what it is. I'm not trying to shit on this, but look, it's the final preseason finale, and I'm sure this won't be a very long pregame live stream here because, let's be honest, generally speaking, this is probably like one of the worst weeks in the NFL in terms of interest and overall television ratings. Listen, I'll be completely upfront with you guys. The only reason I even watch the preseason finale is because I do this podcast. And even then, I tend to like zone out and like, okay, I don't even know what's going on. But neither here nor there. We got a game today, still, nonetheless. We've got some roster spots that need to be figured out. Who is going to make the 53-man roster? You know who your top 22 guys are for the most part. And then as far as the 22 backups, those are, for the most part, figured out. Probably still need to figure out a few names, a few spots here and there. But then, those other remaining spots to complete your 53. And I've mentioned this before. Remember what Scott Pioli and Todd Haley, what was their the phrase they used? The right 53. So that's what we're looking for in tonight's game. You're an Arrowhead, Bob, right on, and you're watching the pregame live chat from your seat at Arrowhead Stadium. You are a real one, Bob. I appreciate you. I'm really curious to see what it's going to look like tonight because there are some guys who have shown flashes in training camp and in the preseason. Guys like Xavier Worthy, Kingsley Suamataia. We've seen Justin Ross make some highlights. Cornell Powell. Some of the guys on the offensive side. Carson Steele, of course. You're spot on right there, John. Carson Steele certainly looking good in the preseason so far. He had one nice kick return last week. Also had that fumble recovery too. And then on offense, looked really good a couple of weeks ago when the Chiefs played the Jaguars. You still have guys like Jared Wiley who've been very quiet. The tight ends in general have been very quiet up until this point here. So I'm curious to see if we get a little bit more Wiley action in this one to see, if he can live up to that hype ever since he came out of TCU in the 4th round of the draft. I'd like to see a little bit more of him. The speculation is Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not expected to play. And when someone is not going to play, if they're going to be held out for non-injury reasons, that basically means that player is going to make the 53-man roster. You know, a guy I'd really like to see, they're all offensive linemen, 3 of them. Lucas Niang, who I've said this so many times, he looked really good in 2021, his rookie year. CJ Hansen, the interior offensive lineman who they drafted in the 7th round, and Hunter Norzad, who another interior offensive lineman they drafted in the 5th round. Because even though those are not your starters, let's say Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, let's say one of those two, hypothetically speaking, God forbid, both of them are gone. My prediction, I think Creed Humphrey's staying, Trey Smith leaves. That's my prediction for 2025. Let's say hypothetically, both of them leave, or maybe both come across injuries this year. How confident are the Chiefs in putting in 2 young day 3 draft picks as starters for this football team to protect the franchise quarterback? One of them who was going to be snapping the football. The Chiefs have had some bright-eyed talent at the offensive line position in years past. Guys like Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, Trey Smith, Zach Fulton, guys who've been drafted in late rounds and have played a lot for the Chiefs. So I'd be very curious to know what guys like Hunter Norzad and CJ Hansen are going to look like tonight. Because if Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, if they can stay healthy and continue to do what they do best on the field this year, odds are we're probably not going to see much of Hunter Norzad or CJ Hansen for the 2024 season until next year. So this is kind of like a good opportunity to see more of those guys and see what they can do before you go on for the future, short term and long term. On the defensive side of the football, FAU, I brought up his name many times. I'd like to see him kind of do something. I thought he did some good things last week that didn't show up on the stat sheet. And I see a lot of Chiefs fans just growing concern and obviously losing patience because they feel like FAU was a first-round bust. Maybe it was pressure to draft a KC kid that went to a nearby college because the draft was in Kansas City and it would have been a special moment to do that kind of thing. So, I don't know. I don't believe a team would do that just because of the situations there. But I think you still need to see something from FAU, a guy who is a first-round draft pick for you. Jack Cochran and Cole Christensen, these are guys who've been around the team a couple of years now and have a pretty good understanding of the defense. They're backup linebackers, but they're familiar with the defensive scheme, the expectations, what Spags wants, all of those things. So, and they both had kind of a solid preseason, not just the preseason, both have had solid training camps as well. I joke with Jack Cochran because he's the guy that was trying to swipe the ball from Kelsey's hand way after the touchdown play in practice, and Kelsey threw a punch at him, and that's what Jack Cochran's kind of known for. But he's had a pretty good month of August for the Chiefs, both in preseason games and in practice. So I'd be very curious to see how much playing time Cochran and Christensen get in this game here. The secondary, this is where I think a lot of question marks are still being surrounded here. What can Nazee Johnson do? What can Jalen Watson, Josh Williams, Kelvin Joseph, who we've seen some in this game, Keith Taylor, who had the interception last week, Tyler Gillespie, Cam Jones, who a linebacker, but has been involved in some of these situations trying to defend receivers. Can he kind of bounce back and rebound after a really bad game last week? Deon Bush has been around a couple of years now. I'm chuckling because he signed like the day of the Tyreek Hill trade, and he tweeted, "Hey, what's up, KC?" And that was the day when Chiefs fans were not very thrilled that day. So anytime I think of Deon Bush, I just always think of that. And he did have that pick in that AFC Championship game too. Kamal Hadden, who has not had a good preseason, in my opinion, and I'm very curious to see what the Chiefs do with their 6th-round draft pick when you have a cornerback room that's pretty crowded. And I think it's one of those situations where you have Spags, what the expectations are, because the Chiefs had a great season last year defensively. You guys don't need me to tell you that. You all know that. But what can you do from last year to this year to try to carry that over? I've said many times, I think the defense is going to take a little bit of a dip back. Statistically speaking, I don't think it's going to be very noticeable when it comes to the eye test, especially if the offense can make drastic improvements this year, and I think they will. I think a lot of people are very confident the offense is going to be much better this year than it was last year, for sure. The only thing is, if the defense can stay a top 10 defense, you're going to have a really good season here. You just need to figure out who those last few guys are going to be that can help complete your 53-man roster. That secondary has provided, I think, more questions this preseason. Now, let me just preface by saying this. The Chiefs defense did not look good in last year's preseason either. You know what last year's preseason and this year's preseason have in common? Chris Jones did not play a single snap. Now, for very different reasons. Obviously, Chris Jones held out last year, held out into the season, ended up getting his contract in right before week 2 against I think it was the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yeah. And then this year, Chris Jones has been held out with an injury, nothing too serious. Andy Reid did say that all of the starters that have been held out in preseason games this year, such as guys like Chris Jones, Joe Tooney, Justin Reed, those guys are expected to play on September the 5th against the Baltimore Ravens, which is exactly 2 weeks from tonight. Crazy, hard to believe we're 2 weeks away. So we're expected to see those guys be available for that opening day kickoff. Do you guys have a name that, I'm seeing a lot of people say Carson Steele. A lot of people. Man, Carson Steele is like the darling of training camp this year. But I'm curious. Carl says, is there any way I can watch the game on my phone? Yes, go to the Chiefs website or download the Chiefs app. How many games did the Chiefs win in last year's preseason? 2. They lost the first one in at the very last moment. The backups, the starters did not look good in that first half. But the backups kind of surged, and then they lost in the end there. So it could have been 3-0. But yeah, to go back to Carl's question, go to the Chiefs website or check out the Chiefs app. I never use any of that because I'm able to watch it on TV. But I've heard from a lot of people that it does work. Also, you said you're in Oklahoma, so you're outside of the Kansas City area, well outside. So you should be able to get the game on NFL Network if you have that. If you can stream through your Direct TV on your phone or whatever you have on your phone, YouTube TV, Hulu, whatever you have. So you do have some options for sure. Oh, nice. Bob, I may or may not know of your son. I used to do that thing, but that was like years ago. I did that for the Royals. I did it for the Chiefs. I worked in the Chiefs. What do you call that room? Control room. I worked in that room for like 2 preseason games. That was it. I don't know if he's ever done things at the T-Mobile Center or at Kauffman Stadium, but yeah, there's a chance that I may have crossed paths with him. At the very least, I'm sure he and I know some people that do that kind of thing because I used to do that. But that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. A lot of you guys are saying Carson Steele. I thought I saw a comment about. Okay, never mind. I got lost there. John's asking what's everyone's thoughts on Deneric Prince. He looked really good in last year's preseason game, as did LaMichael Pirine, who's not on the team right now. But a lot of people liked Pirine and Prince. Prince, he's stuck around. He's still here. So this is somebody that I think when you look at the running back position, and yeah, a lot of people certainly in favor of Steele, especially over Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire might make the team. A lot of people feel like it's going to be interesting, that running back. I think it was CBS Sports who ranked all of the running back rooms, and the Chiefs were ranked 19th. I don't know. I would kind of put them lower. Like Isaiah Pacheco is a good running back, and maybe that's why they have him within the top 20, just barely. But outside of Isaiah Pacheco, man, I don't really know. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, yeah, I thought he stepped up a little bit last year when a lot of the offensive players weren't. But I don't know if that's saying a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. So I don't know. It's just hard for me to really get a good grasp of the running back room there. The Deneric Prince has shown some flashes, enough to make the 53. I don't know. You don't have Jerick McKinnon, who, if I'm not mistaken, is still available, which is a huge surprise to me. I don't know why that guy's available. So we'll see what happens. I think tonight's going to be a very important day for the running backs. There are some wide open positions tonight. There really are. Is it on Paramount Plus? I don't believe so, because it's not being broadcast through a CBS network. It's through an NBC network. So I don't believe Paramount/CBS has the right to that. I could be wrong, but check out. It doesn't hurt to check out Paramount Plus during the game, I guess. Okay, here's an interesting question. What does the future look like for Tony? Colt's asking. I don't know. Tony is such an interesting. Saran Petro had Tim Grunhard on his show this week, and he kind of said it best. He said Kadarius Toney is like that pitcher in baseball who can throw 100-mile-per-hour fastballs, but can't throw strikes. Is he not wrong with that comparison there? I guess if you want to add another sports comparison here, it'd be like, you have a basketball player who's 7'1", 7'2", 7'3", but every time he dunks the basketball, the ball hits the bulk part, the thick part of the rim, and just bounces right out. I mean, that's another way of putting it. The guy just has the potential, but last year he had so many issues. And I know he had that moment in the Super Bowl 57. I know that. Every Chiefs fan is aware. But he turned into a liability. And it's all about, what have you done for me lately? What has Kadarius Toney done for you lately? He's hurt you more than he's helped you. And that play last week where he committed 2 penalties on the same play, that ain't going to help your case to make the 53-man roster. I mean, I'm not saying Sky Moore, talent-wise, has a better skill set than Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore has maybe had a big impact in one of the losses this year. Has he had a major impact in any of the wins during your time with the Chiefs? I don't think so. By the way, I said this year, I meant his rookie year, the punt returns against the Colts. So I don't know, man. It's kind of hard for me to get a grasp of the wide receiver position with Tony and where he fits in. I like Tony and what he can bring to the table, but if you are not catching the football, what do you bring to the table? How good are you? Why is it worth keeping you? Especially when you commit an offside penalty at the worst moment possible and you have a ball keep going off your hands for a pick multiple times, have various other drops. Why? I mean, even though Sky Moore, as I just clearly stated, Sky Moore, his skill set not as good as Kadarius Toney's, I think a lot of people would rather move on with Sky Moore than Tony because I don't really know at this point if Tony's worth keeping around. He's got to go off tonight, not just for the fact that he wants to make the 53-man roster for the Chiefs, but this is a guy that needs to find a way to resurrect his NFL career. He's got 2 Super Bowl rings and a sweet punt return in the record books. But right now, what does he have to show for it? Nothing. So tonight is, I've been saying this for a week now, tonight is Kadarius Toney's Super Bowl. He's got to find a way to have a big game and go out there and show he is worth keeping around. But, man, I don't know. Even if he has a big night tonight, which if he does, I think he stays. But I'm still very pessimistic about it. I'm sorry, I just am. Because he's had some really bad screw-ups in the worst moments possible. And you can't do that kind of thing. You just can't. Especially when the MVP, your 3-time Super Bowl MVP, 2-time regular season MVP, is throwing the ball right in your hands. It doesn't get more annoying than that. That is what irritates everybody from Patrick Mahomes to the coaches and the fans. You can't do that when you've got the MVP throwing it right in your hands. So, I don't know. Curious to see what happens. No, Tony's not playing tonight. Shout out to Matthew over in the UK on Sky Sports. Okay. Yeah, that's generally where a lot of the sports action takes place overseas. So, it's good to see. Brandon says, where can I watch for free? The Chiefs app is what I'm told. So check that out. Justin Ross, yeah. We mentioned Justin Ross earlier. He's had some flashes. So let's see it. And again, I mentioned this with Justin Ross. Like the entire I know we have been bagging on Tony, but the entire wide receiver room was bad last year. Justin Ross didn't play much in 2023. But the time he did play, dude, it's like even he had drops and he didn't play a lot of snaps last year. So what was it with the receiver room last year where it was just bad all the way across the board? I don't know. It's an interesting case study. I don't know if that's a coaching thing with Embry and Nagy and Reed, but they got to figure that one out. Mark says he drops 1 pass. He should not be with us, period. I don't really... I mean, the only way you can even justify that is if he has a big game tonight. That's it. Listen, everybody drops passes, but the ones who drop the most passes, that's where you hurt your career. That's where it becomes pretty tough to land a job in the NFL. If you're a wide receiver and you drop the ball consistently and cannot make up for it with your production, like T. Higgins, he drops a lot of passes, but he makes up for it with what he does on the field. Travis Kelce drops a lot of passes too, but again, he makes up for it with what he does on the field. So you got to play like that if you're Kadarius Toney, if you want to make the team. Okay, I'm going to get out of here, guys. Like I said, not a whole lot to get into on today's episode. It is the fourth, or used to be the fourth, third preseason game. We are 2 weeks away from kickoff. As far as tonight's kickoff for the preseason, just about 30 minutes away from kickoff. So we'll see what the Chiefs do. We'll see who starts, whether it's going to be Carson Wentz or Oladokin. and who's going to make that extra push to try to make the 53-man roster. Hey, you guys are awesome. I appreciate you guys joining me for this pregame live chat. Come back at halftime. We will talk about the first half, recap that very quickly, and then after the game, obviously, we'll have a lot of questions answered. We'll make some educated guesses as to who will make the 53-man roster. Tomorrow, we will do a live stream tomorrow. It won't be a Red Friday live chat, but I'll read a lot of you guys' comments. But I will break down who I think will make the 53-man roster. That will come out tomorrow. Not exactly sure what time, so stay tuned for that. Probably around the same time when we would usually do the Red Friday live chat. So just keep that in mind, and you can expect that tomorrow night. Okay, appreciate you guys. Enjoy the game. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.